and I will request all of your participation in it. So what we're going to do, we're going to do something that's called backcasting. Have you heard about it? What the backcasting is? Okay. So let me start talking about, first about absolutely different thing, and then I'll tell you what the backcasting is. So everyone is know what the let me take another color. Everyone knows what the forecasting is, right? Right? It's like weather forecast,
Oh,
right?
yes.
That is actually um, more often wrong than not. But what the forecast is, right, is that you go from today, right, and you say, okay, based on today condition, based on my expectations, this is what I expect tomorrow, right? So this is the a general sort of understanding of what is going to happen in the future. Let's say not tomorrow, but maybe in the future. So that's a forecast. So for obviously going forward, but then there's also there are certain limitations to that. And when we talk about innovation, when we talk about doing new things, we sort of want to challenge ourselves. We want to think outside the box. And when we start with today, that sooner or later we end up with sort of like a list that we just tried yesterday, that we just tried, right? So pretty much our forecasts are going to be very similar to this, right? It's going to be rooted in what we do today. It rooted in some of the challenges, some opportunities that we have today. And this is not really sort of challenging a status quo. So some smart people, much smarter than I am, they used backcasting. So they actually, instead of for, they're using back. Well, I guess proper would be, actually, as I think about it, should be not for, should be aft. For those of you in Netherlands, you're probably very familiar with the sailing terms. So backcasting, right? And the backcasting, what it does is that we start in the future. We paint the picture of the future, right? That we want to have. Like imagine we have no limitations whatsoever. We had no budgetary limitations. We have no cultural limitations. We had no limitations whatsoever. And we go to the future, and then we roll back in several steps to today. And what it gives us, right? In each of those steps, we are figuring out something that we're missing. What should be the previous step? What should be the previous step? And then sooner or later, we'll figure out one to infinite amount of things that separate us from today to that perfect future that we're trying to paint. And that really sort of challenges our thinking and really is focusing on the future state and really sort of make us think outside of the box. So that's what we're going to do right now. So so let's just dream for a second. So let's for a second just say, what is sort of the ideal vision, the ideal picture, if you had no limitations, that you would like to see AB InBev realize, let's say in 5 years? What would be the ideal future? If you had no limitations, if there was no legacy, no debt, nothing, what would be that ideal vision of AB InBev?
Supply chain fully automatized.
Yeah, but AB InBev totally, or our international logistics part?
Let's say, since we will hear more or less related to logistics, let's say logistics. Let's say logistics in particular. If we had like no limitations whatsoever, no budget, no technology, just what would be the future state?
Nobody touches our beer until the final consumer.
Okay. Anyone else?
We can ship anything within 3 days.
Okay, so let me first. So direct consumption by the final customer, right? Daniel, did I get it correctly?
Yeah, basically. So the whole supply chain is automatized, like somebody else was saying.
Yeah, but
maybe. Okay. So go ahead.
When we say about the final customer, I'm talking about, like, for example, I want to, to get a Stella Artois, right? And I go and I click the button and it goes from AB InBev directly. Or when we're talking about the final customer, who exactly are we talking about?
No, basically, when you go to order your beer at the bar, the first guy who touched it was the bartender, and you, the second one, drinking it, right? And it was delivered to you through the whole value supply chain by robots.
Okay. So let me put it this. So automated supply chain to the sort of like business consumer, right? So it's not me, it's the business consumer, right?
Sure.
Okay, cool. And then there was something else, and then Olga will go to you. So Madeline, was it you who said something?
Yes, no, I was actually saying automatization 100%.
Okay, cool. So
that kind of is related to what Daniel was saying.
Olga, any
I was more thinking about, like direct feedback from the clients to us. So about the services, about whatever, just to have like direct and quick feedback from the customers, whatever it would be. So if it's the final customers is like, organization, it's organization. If it's a person, so then from the person.
So what kind of feedback you would like to collect?
Level of satisfaction, if something goes wrong, what exactly. So but mostly about this, because today it's very reactive, so we are using our service level metrics more, which a bit more showing how the order's been fulfilled from the different perspectives. So it might be a bit more advanced metrics or less advanced metrics, depends on the type of the customer. But at the end, and also from the time perspective, it requires some time to get this feedback. So but I think we can improve ourselves and be like more customer oriented in case we will get this feedback quicker and from the final customer.
Okay, sounds good. So let's go.
I was thinking of another thing that I think that can complement this. ABI being a company that deals with all the needs of our customers, or like logistically or commercially. So it's like, why do we end in beer and beverages, for example?
Yeah. Okay. So I think those are kind of related. And when we talked to Rob, I don't know if I told you that, I was like, hey Rob, we have a InBev and they want to talk about customers. Can you talk to them about them? And they said, I'll do anything you want for the kings of beers. So I think you can praise yourself for the kings of beers, and I think that this is what we're going to do. So
can I just add one thing, but more related to the international as such, which be for me like from an international, let's say, activity.
We lost you, Flavia. We lost you. She is probably we'll. Lost the sound.
You're muted.
No. I think she's not muted. I think we lost the sound. Her microphone may be disconnected.
Hello.
Yes, we are back.
Sorry, yeah, because I was moving. So from my side, particularly on the international part, is really to be the logistic company of ABI. Everything that needs to be exported. It's funny because we are in the logistic business, but sometimes we need to do a shipment and then we use a forwarder, and we think, let's connect with Hillebrand, I don't know, to make it, and they will make it. And for me, would be let's connect with the international team and they will make it within the 3 days that Miguel said, for instance, so that we really and why not only for ABI, maybe for other partners.
Yeah.
A logistic company.
Yeah. That's something that we have been talking about, right? Is that how can you actually leverage your existing logistics supply chain? Can you do sort of like logistics as a service, right? Because you are in all of those countries and you have already all this access. But so let's start with the direct loop to the consumer, because I think customer. Is it the right word? No, anyway, customer. No, it's not. Anyway, consumer. I don't know. I'm not my first language. Let's put it this way: to the consumer, be it B2B or B2C. So and now let's walk back, right? So let's say what would be, Olga, since it was sort of your idea, what do you think would be the one step before it? So let's say that then after that step, after the step that we're going to place right here, we're going to say that yes, we now have direct feedback loop to the consumer. what would be the step before?
Upgrade our sales force.
Okay. Okay.
It's our order portal and our platform with the customer, so it should automatically ask afterwards how it was.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What else? Daniel, you were going to say something.
I think, yeah, some kind of centralized, feedback in terms of, and I took it as, Olga, like somebody tries our beer and then they can give feedback right away. So I, like a ratebeer.com or something like that, that we have, but more rolled out, and we get access to it, because right now none of us get access to that data.
So I think with this one, right, it sort of separates on two major things, right? So first of all, rate my beer sort of thing, assumption, right? So, and after this rate my beer, we also would have something like rate my delivery, something like, or rate my partnership with AB InBev, right? That's sort of like two ideas that goes into that, correct? Right? Mm-hmm. So what would pretty much say that I would probably go together, right? Is that how do actually some kind of the collection system, right? Collection system of how do we actually collect this information? But the problem with those approaches is that when you try to ask people for their immediate feedback, or try to again go to a website or go to say how was it, the problem is that it's usually very limited. People do not actually like going there. They're not really appreciating what is sort of why are you trying to rate this. So I would say that for the rate my beer sort of approach, what else do you think you can give to your consumers, right? So they would go and actually rate your beer. So how would you incentivize? So let's say that you go and you create the application, right? So let's say you go and create the application for the Apple and the Android, right? And then you go.
Oh, we have it.
What?
We already have the app.
Okay, so let's say you have this app, right? So okay, so this is great. So we walked back to today, right? But what do you have inside it? How do you actually incentivize people to go and rate it?
No, that's actually a very good challenge, because I'm constantly thinking about this dilemma. It's like top down or bottom up. So if your customer doesn't see the needs to make it, so if you're creating it not for the customer, then it's fail.
Exactly.
From one perspective, from another, I don't know.
Or we can also make it easy for the customers to go there. Like you put a QR code in the label of the beer that will direct you to the place, instead of that he needs to open the app, needs to scan, needs to rate, and so on.
Yeah,
but what is for them? So why they would make even this simple things as scanning the barcode and giving you
participate in a lottery on whatever, where you can win
beer, yeah.
Collect some points.
No,
yes.
But not even like, I think it's more like publicity. How many people has the app Vivino and they scan the bottle of wine that they drink and they rate it, right?
Yeah, it's a big fun, this platform, indeed.
They do that for free. So why not incentivize and make easy for the people to do the same with beer?
Yeah, but there is similar platform for beer, so but they're not such famous, I would say, as Vivino.
But think about this way, right? So what he had, this sort of like information, right? The information that is built into this, right? Why not sort of built on gluttony and curiosity, right? So maybe when people scan it, right? Maybe when people scan it, they can see how this beer is being manufactured. Maybe like a head brewer, there's a short video about how this beer is manufactured and what it is. And then maybe that there is a small survey saying, okay, we can predict you the next beer. What might be the next beer you would like, right? So you can say, okay, how do you like on this? How do you like on that? Maybe there's a certain prediction built in.
Actually, this is something that I learned that we are working on. There is a project, and they want to have a QR code in the beer. When you scan it, will give you like for this beer we used the hops from US. The brew master was this person, the history of the brew master, and so on and so on. This is something that we are working on. It's a project led by the guys in Brazil, and
but then besides curiosity, right? Maybe like a prediction, they can go and they can rate their beer, and they say what they like, what they didn't like, right? And then the next step is like, okay, try this beer and try that beer, right? But the idea behind it is that, as Olga said, absolutely right, is that it should go beyond just like, oh, please rate this experience, because what's the point for me? What do I get from this, right? And that's
can I add something here? So for our e-commerce, we do have, and I think that we call it the Brewgorithm, which is an algorithm that is run to make or to give insights to consumers on what kind of products they could like based on their history. So I think that what I see is that we have our e-commerce stores, like that direct to consumer business that is not necessarily linked to our international supply chain. So like e-commerce might grab the data and then they're like, oh, I'm going to place an order, but then there is a lot of manual processes in between to then be able to determine what beers they should be ordering or bringing from other countries, and then just all the processes that happen in between might not be connected. So it would be great if the international team was much closer to that, and to that consumer, I guess, facing data, to then be able even to streamline it a lot within the total supply chain.
Yeah, and that's
sorry, I'm going to throw a provocation out there. All these sites like rating things and stuff are heavily geared towards beer geeks, right? Normal consumer is not going to seek out a beer rating website or something, or even a beer selling website to put his opinion there. So is there a way that we could come up with that would incorporate more of our consumers? Something that they're already using, maybe like Facebook or Instagram?
No, like for example, like even if we
data from?
Yeah, but even if we consider bees, like the bees project on the B2B, like it seems that like the international team should be getting those types of insights. Like the local market will get it. Like why not the international team? Because then you're getting the customers, like the bigger pogs, the retailers. You get some feedback, and then at the same time you're getting feedback on the D2C. So really you're streamlining that information flow upstream to be able to determine what the demand is. I think that this is mostly on the demand,
Yeah, and also like if you make that app, and again, obviously we can talk a lot about creating the value for the customer, right? But if you're successful in creating the value for the customer and they go and they rate your beer, not only you can get the direct feedback about who those people are and what they do, but you can also predict in what area what beers are more popular. If you need to scan a QR code to get to the certain thing, that means that you already bought it, right? Or you're thinking about buying it. And therefore, as you go, you can actually collect this information. You can predict better. Let me give you an example. We work with one of the Mexican retailers, and we are onboarding a very interesting application called 3D Look. It's a 3D app that lets you try different clothes. So you build your 3D avatar and you try different clothes before buying. So what it actually gives them, right? It not only gives them the better return rate, so people try it and they see it better, but it also gives them the show what is people are more interested in. So in this geographic region, that people are more interested in that kind of that kind of clothes and on that kind of fashion, right? So it gives that additional information they can extract. So that's like one of the things, right? So, and then when we go for the partnership, when we go to the B2B again, when they would like to rate it, when you would like to get this one-to-one relationship, when you want to get the candidate feedback, what do you think would be the value for the B2B customer? How can you immediately catch those interactions? How can you incentivize your B2B customers to provide you that feedback?
Like, I think that they should see like an improvement in the customer service, or like the service level that we are providing to them, because they might have more accurate, like stock for them to fulfill their own needs. I just think that like in supply chain, in the international supply chain, we look at the internal flows, but we're not connecting them necessarily with the external flows.
So how do you think it would be better if you collect this information? How would you actually meaningfully collect this information from majority of your customers?
Maybe some sort of gamification to
okay.
I don't know, it's like just you win stuff if you participate.
Okay. What else?
Yeah, like my only comment to that is that there is just a certain percentage of people that might go and do the QR code.
Yeah.
And then we need investment money from the marketing team to keep, like the websites or the prices updated.
So how do your current B2B customers, right? So bars and all this, how do they currently order, let's say, the beer from you?
You can either have a sales rep, you can have an app, you can be like telesaled. I think those are the major three ones. We are pushing forward to have a B2B app, which is what Diana was saying, is to have like at least 50% of that through the apps, so that it's more proactive and less reactive.
So in that ordering app, what stops you to adding the feedback to that app? Let's say that people go in and they order from their phone, right? And then as soon as they get the order, they check that the order was delivered, right? So they can actually sign off that yes, the order was delivered, and immediately they're sort of like a jumps of feedback, or maybe before they order the next time, the feedback form shows up and they cannot skip it unless they fill it. What stops you from that happening?
Nothing. I think
I think nothing is stopping, and I think in the let's say domestic market, in some of the markets they do already have this type of feedback. I think from applicability perspective on the international, because actually we were discussing this recently. If at least on the queries we could send immediately, because on the order is a bit we have a time lag that a customer will receive a link from an order that was ordered like now to arrive in 8 weeks from now, and then in 8 weeks we receive how was your order from 2 months ago. So that we found a bit awkward because of the time, but at least from the queries as such, as soon as I send a question, where's my order, or I want to change my order, then for us to be able to already have a rate on the service, but then it's more on the service rather than on the service that we provide there, more than the delivery of the goods.
Yeah, but the point here being, right, is that I think we all sort of understand that in order for you to collect the feedback from those B2B customers, what is in them, there should be in one centralized space, right? Because for the B2C, the only way you can do it is sort of incentivize them to use it one way or another. With the B2B, if they can have the shipping, if they can have the queries, if they can have the tracking in the one app, right, that sort of handles this, or one system, maybe one website, then collecting feedback becomes much easier, right? But then the question becomes that how do you actually share this feedback? And how do you actually, okay, so you collected this, where does this feedback goes? How do you create this centralized database? And that would be the step that you need to do before actually going to this direct feedback loop from the consumer, right? But anyway, we can talk a lot about it right now, right? But as you can see right here, right now, we sort of identified what is missing by walking back, right? We need to have a database. We need to have some kind of the applications, right? And this is sort of the way of how you walk down. And this is how you start thinking, not about what it is right now. Well, we sooner or later end up being here, but we still understand that there should be certain steps that takes us to that final vision. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So again,
yeah. So it's like design thinking, right?
It's a little bit different, because design thinking is usually starts with the current problem, right? And sort of like, okay, so solve it for your customer, and then go from there. And here sort of starts with the vision, right? And then with the vision that kind of goes, and then you just sort of walk back to today, and you try to connect the today and the tomorrow together.
I'm thinking it's similar to what the Amazon Web Services guy was saying. So it's, you start with a press release. What?
Yeah, I like the press release.
Yeah, exactly, right. But this is usually this has a little bit of the benefit, because when you actually, if let's say if you hired us to do this strategy for you, right, we would actually go into the much more detail instead of like focusing on the final sort of idea, right? We would identify that, okay, maybe you're missing some piece here, maybe you're missing some piece here, maybe you need to understand, okay, how, let's say, other businesses are doing the similar thing. Maybe you're missing this knowledge, maybe you're missing some knowledge on the integration that you need to get some additional feedback and some additional guidance on it, right? So pretty much what it does, the purpose of the Amazon press release is really to sort of get the thinking right. The purpose of this backcasting is to identify what are the pieces that separates you from this final dreamy vision and today's world, right? And it usually works extremely well with executives, because executives, they really like of dreaming, and they really like of like setting goals, and then just like, oh, we want to do this, right? And then you need to understand what is actually missing from each of those pieces to actually get to that dreamy state. So let's try maybe one more, and I apologize for the international logistic company, because I just being cautious of time. So let me probably drag it a little bit over, and then let's say automated supply chain to the business. Why keep doing this? Customer. Consumer. All right. So what would you say would be the step before that? What would you say would be the step before sort of creating this automated supply chain? They would say, okay, the next step would be having the absolutely automated supply chain. What do you think would that be? What would be the minimal viable product before that?
I think first we need to work on the data.
Okay.
Easy, accessible, correct, in-time data.
Okay. So okay, let me put it. Let me put this here as like real time. I guess real time demand data, right? That would be that.
No, everything, because at the end it's like we just heard in the last presentation.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the data, and if you don't have the data accuracy, your documents are wrong, the address for delivery is wrong, everything is wrong, and for sure you need all the master data.
Okay.
Correct, but you also need it accessible, and it's not only master data, it's also the data, where is my product? Like we said, the expectation in 5 years from now is for sure that they want to see when the truck is coming to their location for unloading.
Amazon style. Yes. You're 5 stops away.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with that. But what would be this like? Let's say just like Ingo, where are you located geographically?
In Belgium.
In Belgium. So let's say that you're in Belgium, and what do you think is needed to actually make this automated supply chain to the business consumer? So what do you think would be, you have something in place, and then the next steps, the next logical step would be to have truly automated supply chain. What needed to be created? Sort of like this, not just data, but what else should be there? What kind of setup you see to actually make this automated change happen?
Yeah, first is data, then it's systems, platforms, and then you need to maybe reconstruct some facilities, because at the end it should be possible. We have fully automated, or they're not we, but existing on the planet, fully automated warehouses where the robots are going and grabbing pallets with a fully automated order system, putting it on a truck. The truck will also go without a driver in the future on whatever magnetic lanes or GPS controlled, or I think it's feasible. Not in 5 years from now, but in 10 or 15, I can imagine that it will be indeed a fully automated supply chain. Maybe in the US, Daniel.
5 years.
5 years.
In US, it will
They
be 5
they
years.
already have self-driving taxis, right? And the number one expense for businesses is trucking. It's gonna happen.
Maybe we'll go with drones.
Yeah.
For the inventory counting, we use the drones.
Beer falling from the sky. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, we have an investment in a last mile delivery.
Yeah.
I think I have shared that with you. Like it's just a small robot.
Yeah.
That can just, it's better to be on the ground than to fly.
Yeah.
At least for beer.
We can imagine. To throw a beer, I would imagine us getting our head hit to not break this bottle. Huh? Oh my gosh. I even don't want to think about it.
And I think potentially you can even build it in 5 years, but I think it's so CapEx intense to build it end to end. It will take much longer. But I think in Singapore, in the port, they have a terminal where you have also the movement of the containers fully automated. There are no drivers anymore in the cranes, in the vehicles. Everything is automated.
Yeah. So we sort of identify, right, is that in order for us to have this, we need to have sort of this like automated warehouses, the automated movement throughout your warehouses, right, and then self-driving data. But I think what is really important, right, is the data. So how do you actually act on all of this, right? How do you actually know and collect this particular data? So now the question becomes, right, is that if and then going back to our previous exercise, right, about the customer data, collecting the customer data. If you have this application that sort of goes and you have a centralized location when they don't call the rep, or when they don't call, or at least the reps do the same, when they have the application, they maybe even have a GPS tracking, maybe it's on their phone, you can actually go and collect all this data and keep track of what is going on. So the address, right, may be there. What about let's say that how they sell, let's say how they sell beer, and then again just sort of throwing ideas out, right? Is that how do you actually know that this customer needs beer before they actually order? Well, one of the ways that somehow, let's say, right, and when we saw it happening in the other industries, that InBev, let's say, creates some kind of the restaurant or bar-friendly software where you can actually punch in your orders, right? And as you punch in your orders, what people buy, you can actually compare it to the inventory that you send to them, and you can actually predict ahead of time when they will need a certain beer and of what capacity. We have done it with some of the retailers here, but that's something that was actually really interesting, is that how do you actually provide and how do you actually keep track of what is happening in the store before they actually order the beer? And they did it by providing this accounting software that sort of you can go and punch in all their orders, and you know when your orders are getting depleted. So obviously it might not be necessarily applicable to you, but that's something that we saw happening around the world.
But in the future, I think you will anyway order with your mobile phone. I don't think necessarily, and I think COVID is pushing that, because now you even in Belgium don't get a menu. When we still had the restaurants open, you need to go online and check what is on the menu. So then you can also easily click and say, I want this beer, and then you have it automatically in the system. And then ideally the brewery also knows what is sold online.
Yeah.
And then you can replenish automatically.
Exactly, right. So why not, for example, InBev create such an application that could be like free to use for the restaurants, or use at the minimal price, and you can sort of weaponize the data. And not only you can collect this data for your own benefit, but you can also sell it to others to see, okay, this time around, I know the lamb sausage is more popular than anything else, right? So something like this, because there's usually a separation between where we start and where we end with this data, right? So maybe some kind of the restaurant app, right, that could be almost integrated, and you don't really need a server, right? Yes, it will not be directly correlated, but then at the same time, you'll be able to collect so much data that you'll be able to kind of know which restaurants are using your beer, which beer people are ordering, and then sort of prepare the shipment right before, right? So then let's say with the automated movements, right? So we actually work with several companies who are actually doing this, right? So the automated warehousing. Can you actually go and create a small sort of a prototype warehouse where those movements could be automated, right? So we already understand that, okay, once we get this data, we can ship it in, we can even move it manually, but can you move it through the robots? There's actually, there are several companies, and we work with them a lot on different engagements, who actually provide those automated AI driven movement within the warehouses and similar, right? So there are a couple of robotics companies, there are a couple of self-driving companies that are doing exactly this. So maybe you can sort of go and learn from, let's say, some startups who in that industry, right? And then you can maybe sign a small pilot offer and create those prototype, right? And you can do those things parallelly. So pretty much what we're saying right now, right? And what we work in this exercise is that how do we actually walk back and understand what is missing, right? So for example, Ingo was very right to say, okay, we are missing the data, but how do you actually collect it? Well, we can create some kind of the restaurant app that can collect this, right? Maybe, and then obviously there's going to be a lot of work on the background, how to marry it all together. But nevertheless, while having this sort of in mind, and remember about alignment, right? If we align the goal, if we understood what the goals are, we say, okay, we're doing it to get this automated supply chain. And that way, everyone who's working on this initiative can kind of go back and compare to the goals that they have set along the way and sort of align themselves throughout the organization. So just being mindful of time, this is the backcasting exercise. Was it good? Was it interesting? Or not really? Any questions about it?
I think it might be interesting to do this with like teams for their like 3-year plan and stuff like that, right? Then you can kind of build that roadmap to where you want to be.
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting, right? Is that sometimes it is better to sort of build the vision maybe for your unit, but then what you saw happening right now on this particular exercise right here, right, is that everyone was saying, oh, but we have this and we have this app and we have this algorithm, right? So that portion of alignment and making sure that we collect all the data together, that's something that might be actually beneficial if you join different groups together.
What I noted down as the outcome of this session, that's maybe to learn more for the current bees or teams who is working now with these sales platforms, collecting data or any kind of customer experience. So which data actually they are collecting and what is their plan, and maybe to brainstorm a bit around how we can use this data for logistics purposes as well. Because I know that for a moment they are more working for sales sales side, just to find the benefits in the sales side. Maybe for domestic logistics, if you're talking about tier 2. But like in general, so I think with is international, do not know a lot in the details for these things, but we might also have some insights knowing which data they are collecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, sort of like again, remember how from the very beginning, it's kind of one of those PC answers that communication is the key, right? But I think this is exactly the key, right? If you sort of agree from the strategic standpoint is that you're trying to do this, or you're trying to do your automated supply chain, right? Then you can sort of facilitate the conversation. Okay, what data are you collecting? What insights are you getting from it, right? And why are you getting this conversation? Maybe ask them for like a spreadsheet. Hey guys, can you share it with us? So we know this paper minimal viable product that is done by again just sort of exchanging information. Say, hey, if you actually share this information, can we as an international team use this domestically collected information for something? And you don't need to build the data lake. You don't need to build anything. You just can grab this data from them in the form of the Excel spreadsheet and analyze it and see, is there any value that you can extract from it? Other comments?
I would say just to pile up on what you were saying, is like, I think integration is key, because many things that we mentioned are happening, but maybe in different places. For example, there are sales algorithms that we use currently to predict what our customers will sell, and there are pilots of like smart warehouses that do that. So it's like sort of seeing it from the end-to-end perspective and say, okay, if we go backwards from the consumer up until like upstream to the breweries, what it is that we need, and then just do something about it. So I like the idea.
Diana, so maybe question to you. You're heading in sort of like innovation, right? In innovation efforts. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? Why do you think your efforts are not publicized enough?
Like our area in general?
Yeah.
I think that we represent a very small percentage of the total volume, and I think that we might be good within ZX, but because because then we have the commercial team, we have the supply chain team, we have the breweries, and then most of our volumes are domestic. So it was like a little bubble that now is going to change. We did work very closely with the international team, and one of the things that we did was the creation of Prime, which is the way that we created or that we managed the long tail, meaning the diversification of the SKUs with the smaller volume. So I think that really like made a big change to the way that we operated, even though it cost us a lot of money. But it's the balance between service and cost, and we needed that service. I think that we really work on silos. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens in ABI. The sales team is the sales team. Like whenever I was at GHQ, like I was logistics, and that was it. Like it was logistics, but I had no clue what the beer was about. I had no clue what sales did. I had no clue, like what marketing did. And then what happened in ZX is that we were a very small team. It's like 100 people, let's say, in the head office. And we just all had to work much closer. So whenever we needed to find a solution to a problem, it was, one person from sales, one person from supply, one person from logistics. We were together. And then I was able to understand the insights, and then the products and the ingredients and how to make it, and the whole business, even with the finance team and the acquisitions, that it really gives a different perspective, not just to be logistics. And I really think that that's what we need to do. And I think I mentioned this in our first session, that if we're able to work with commercial, and have the brands like see the value of the international team and say, hey, like I really want to improve my Stella freshness because I'm really going to beat the green. then then that's the case. Then why commercial cannot sponsor a supply project, because it's going to drive a commercial benefit.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what happened.
Yeah.
But to be honest, Diana, they do today. I think what we need to be more picky is to have a concrete strategy of what makes sense from an international point of view in terms of partnership with commercial. But today I see they are seeing more and more the value of supply partners, including international for some of them, because some of them are markets that they don't produce.
Yeah, no,
so
I agree.
On that, I see an evolution.
Yeah, it's changed a lot, like in the last 5 years. I agree.
Yeah, and I think in general, right, is that how it could be done, right, is that you can almost go and talk to those teams and like tell us again, get some kind of the independent third party, right, either internal or external, to actually go and collect those pain points, right, collect those pain points from your partners, have them inside of you. Then by doing those sessions, right, by sort of aligning, how like the regular corporate talk says that, oh, we all driven by the same goal, blah blah blah, and it doesn't really work, because again, everyone is treated differently. Everyone have their own goals. But exercises like this, when you focus on the strategy, when you focus on this vision, really sort of allows like people love it because it's a little bit of the dreaming exercise, right? And people like to dream. And then I saw how Ingo and Daniel was like, oh yeah, self-driving cars, and there's going to be drones, and it's just fun, right? It's just fun to talk about something that hasn't happened, is something futuristic, right? But sort of having those pain points, and we're working with those pain points and bringing them together to form that mutual strategy is what facilitates those discussions, what facilitates this mutual understanding, and that would facilitate those pilot projects. As Olga was saying, again, they're trying to build the data lake, but again, can you actually extract the value from the data lake? And it usually requires a lot of preliminary analysis and preliminary understanding of how it actually translates to the hard dollar value. All right, just be mindful of time. That's all what I have. Any last minute questions? And I'm going to send both screenshots to you, so don't worry. I'm going to send both of them. Any questions?
One last question, kind of unrelated topic, but have you seen other companies that I have the feeling ABI is very good at the big, and with some of our teams, we're very good at the small, and bridging between the two, taking it from the small and scaling it to the big, we struggle with. And I was wondering if you had seen that with other companies and how they solve that issue.
So can you maybe like give me a particular example?
Like some of the technologies that Diana found are great, right? But we're not using them on a big scale because there's nobody from ZX to take it from a small little pilot that they're doing in ZX to the big ABI machine. And we see that with brands and with technologies. There's no like scaling team.
Yeah, no, and then I think that we talk about it, like we have Ilian, like the supply chain of the future team, that they're the ones, at least on the technology side, that they should be scaling the things. And then
maybe it's too early for me to see the result, but that's my experience. Is I feel like we're small and big and nothing in between.
But Daniel, I think that we're not risk takers. No, like we're always protecting the budget. We're always like, even though we were innovation, we're like protecting a lot of things that we should just have done as far as like pilot like crazy, like just a lot of the things we started like that. Like we started bringing products to the market, and then we were like, oh, we should be conscious in the way that we bring product to the market. And then that's how we developed the Venture OS, the operating system, to then have certain triggers for products to be seed, to then move from seed to launch to grow. And then we became a little bit stiff, to be honest.
But nothing grows. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, so I think that's sort of going back to my original message, is that the scaling is not about the technology. The scaling is really about sort of the value that is being created, right? So for example, if if you can, let's take an example of the data lake, right? If you can create couple use cases that allows a immediate value of creation, right? So you know that, for example, if you go from point A to point B, right? And that point A, point B is done through the data lake, right? And I put my data puddle here, right? And it actually, if this interaction somehow creates the value, so I think we mentioned about the domestic team and the international team, right? That you, again, you work with those files, you analyze what kind of insights you can actually get from it. You totally analyzed what are some benefits from going to point A to point B and creating this value, right? You can already sort of justify the creation of this data lake, right? And then from there, once you identify the standards, start with the business cases, right? And then once maybe A and B is not going to be applicable for everyone, but then maybe there's going to be C and D, there's going to be F to, I don't know, F to Z, and each of them, as they're going to be working on adding solutions, you will and they will all create the value in between. Then you will be able to create a product that is scalable, and then you can give out to every team pretty much out there and just say, hey guys, we already tested it. We already kind of built the best practices around it based on those 3 teams. Go and use it. And that's where the scale happens. You cannot scale technology in the big organization until you actually get sort of a good product working, right? Because again, those A, B, C, D, F, and Z, they might be early adopters. Remember how we talked about the early adopters? And they will be okay with the sort of being glitchy and not being working, but you need to develop a good solution. You need to develop a best practices from the business standpoint. How do you identify the cases that actually create the value? How do you test them? And then the last part is really that how do you actually involve those teams that they want to use that information, right? That this new thing that you create is better than what they had before. And that's how you achieve scale. There's no other way how to achieve scale. That Facebook is such a scaled product, not because they said that everyone is use it, but because it actually creates the value. As it's a good working product that creates value and sort of that shows the best practices for using Facebook.
Yes, but how you divide the product? And I will come back to my dear example of RFS from Madeleine. Because, for instance, we want to cover all the processes. And Jose, I'm pretty sure he wants the solution up and running in less than 6 months with all the processes working. And I will suggest let's do some few processes in RFS, guarantee that some of those few processes are working properly and is tested. But then how we balance the need of the business to have a tool soon between having and having the tool perhaps not so not done completely, not 100%. So when your examples A, B, C, D, F, C, F set for me is one process, right? Some simple processes, and then we go a little bit more complex and a little bit more complex.
It's there's sort of like 2 balances, but let me give it maybe a floor to Jose. So do you think, Jose, that do you think you would have a value from, let's say, 3 processes, right? Let's say that you want to automate 10 processes, right? They want to automate 10 processes that are done completely different. And let's say that Paola makes only, I don't know, 3 or 4. But those are the most painful to you. Would it still have value for you?
Yes, for sure. I think this is.
I'm going to record this, Jose.
No, but this is sort of the.
She's recorded.
No, but this is sort of the when I have in mind agile, for example, is I want to move from here to there, right? So Paola will start with a skateboard, then she will give me a bicycle, and then she will give me like a motorcycle, and in the end I will get a car. So it's like what he like. I think that my minimum viable product makes sense, but for sure, when you were saying 6 months, I was going to type 4. To be honest.
Exactly.
But you guys, like, do you guys have like a Scrum team? Is that what you're doing for RFS?
No.
No, just
maybe. Like
It's a
put
project
somebody.
Start yet.
has
We
not
didn't start
started.
yet, so-
That is why I like the project as an
Yeah,
example.
because you know, like let's say you can put somebody from like Brad Weaver's team, from the innovation team, then somebody from I don't know the supply team, somebody like a very small team, and
invite
then
me over.
and then iterate.
Yeah, exactly, right. But I think that's like one of the things, right? Is that it's sort of being sort of on the working a lot with technology, right? It's usually, and I know how it's your organization, but in the majority of organizations that I work with, that this technology is kind of like a big no sayers in a lot of organizations. They're like, no, and then you'll have your solution in 2 years, and then it's going to work. That's usually how I heard a lot of like in my personal career, right? So I think that what Jose is saying, right, is that, and what I'm saying is that if instead of saying that 4 months or 6 months or 12 months, right, I can say, okay, if we're moving to, let's pick your most painful product, your most painful application, right, and let's go and fix it. I know that it's not the all, but at least it solves your biggest problem. Would you be okay with us delivering like in 2 months and then everything else delivering later? And I'm pretty sure that the Jose and the majority of people will say, yes, that's absolutely fine because it solves my biggest problem. And then sort of building on that is much easier process than saying, let's try to get everything done at once. So it's much easier to get a buy-in and get the mutual buy-in if you say that, okay, I'm solving your problem now. Yes, it's not the whole thing, but I'm solving your biggest problem now. Then we're going to solve the next big problem and sort of start building it. And that way, Jose, and like, I'm sort of picking up on you, but just like imaginary Jose, right? That he'll say, yes, let's go and try to solve at least one thing, and I'll already be happy. And then as we build towards this larger vision, it still creates the value on each step going forward.
No, it's because we are always, and potentially is how we can work in agile, but then we know that even if we deliver one part, let's say RFS is, I don't know, remember 10 variants of processes. There is the one that is the biggest one. You can pick the smallest one, or you can pick the biggest one and then tested the concept and then reiterate until and went live. But then this is my life as a project is, then you need to deal with the end users, because the end user will be working in 2 tools potentially, or in 2 ways of working. The first one, that is the first process, and then the second one will be today's emails. So I need to train those people. So I don't think the problem is to move to agile, as it is to convince our end users that we are going to deliver something already, like, let's say we cover not 10, but we cover 3 processes that are more critical, but then the other 7, and these are our customers, all supply and my customers, are going to say, but now I need to work in 2 ways. Mm-hmm. So that is why we tend to try to put the full process together to minimize the change management impact on the users, or in the user using 2 tools.
Yeah.
I don't know in other organizations how they manage, but I know that here is a big thing.
So and you're absolutely right. When you're trying to sort of move those tectonic shifts, there's no way but to you will end up with 2 tools, right? And you will end up for the 2 tools for the number of reasons. So the first one is that, yes, you have this sort of iterative approach that you if you want to solve 1 out of 10, you'll have only one and everything in 1 tool, right? But if this 1 tool have enough of information and have enough of processes, right, that sort of solves the problem better than the old tool, more people are going to be using it. And then what it actually gives you as a project lead, they actually having 2 tools, the old way and the new way, that it gives a little bit more comfort for people to actually go and do it faster, do it in a much more sort of agile way with the shorter sprints, because at the end of the day, if it fails, they have the old way of going it, right? And then as you build through it, and yes, that's absolutely right, that you're going to have some people who will be willing to use the new process. But then if you are addressing those pain points, if you're really making their experience better, you will end up with a situation where you have those two processes in parallel, and enough people are tested the new process that you can just sort of churn off the old way. But there is really like, it's completely unrealistic to expect that from the day zero, somehow you'll be able to create a solution that completely replaces the old system, and you just turn the old system off. You have to have this old system exist to sort of do this variance check, right? It also allows you to move much faster because they do have a backup, right? But also, again, I would say that really focus on those pain points. If your new system is much easier operated than the old system, more and more people will migrate to it.
Okay, I can tell you their experience, but yes, no, I understand your point. But at the end, the agile point is it goes very linked to this change management. And yes, of course, if I'm sending, but let's say it's not RFS, because RFS is a simple one that you will compare emails versus tool. But there are other, when we are replacing tools, it's very unlikely that you will have 100% everything perfect. So is that management that creates a lot of, I don't know, sensitivities or like, oh, but the old tool was better. Not necessarily. The new tool is good, but we still have some gaps that we need to cover sometimes. So I don't know. For me, it's more change management than the agile way.
I would say it's actually it's neither. I would say it's more the strategy way, right? Is that sort of, if you go and create the tool and people are doubting that your new tool is better, are you actually creating the right tool? Right? So are you actually addressing the biggest problem that they have? So that's,
it's difficult, because let's say on your example, right? I can put the tool that already has, but to commit to the integration, right? Because potentially the data will be on another system. So I potentially can say the integration will come later, because I want to the sooner the tool is deployed, the sooner the user will see it and we can improve it even better, right? But then potentially you can take a decision, I will download the data manually to the tool. And then potentially it's not real time, but it will be weekly or every 2 days. But for the user, potentially that's not as good. It's not necessarily that the tool is not good, it's that we made a decision at that moment in order to bring earlier the results than the other. So for me, as I said, it's very difficult to manage. I would love to give the first time everything without errors, with replacing the 100% the tool. But my concern on the agile is that we can have the users already trying to see that sometimes not all the things are going to be there, because it's always the comparison with the old tool. So fair point. Are you building the right tool because the users are complaining? Fair point. I will say, but I found that they are very attached to the old tool sometimes, even to make the decision.
But I mean, as I said, right, in order for you to sort of like test assumptions and test the workflow, you do not necessarily need 100% buy-in, right? You can get, let's say your team has 30 people. You can definitely find 2 or 3 people who are willing to, to sort of bear with you to actually go and test it. And actually, go those extra hurdles. I think that's absolutely fine to go with sort of like your guinea pigs. And there will be people, who are a little bit more, again, those early adopters who are willing to use those new and shiny things, and they will be able, and they will be okay with sort of, dealing with maybe not as perfect tool as what they have right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like at the end of the day, and again, like it's really complicated, and you definitely need more information to give you kind of like a better example. But then at the end of the day, if you reach the critical mass and there's a lot of people using it, and you sort of build it as, if like out of 8 teams, 6 are using it, you can just say, hey guys, you know what? Sorry. Right. So that's not really the nice way of doing it. It's much better to align this. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just need to say, that's the way forward. And if you have enough critical mass, they will pretty much be forced to use that new tool. All right.
Okay,
All right.
thank
All
you.
right. Well, on that note, let me stop the recording. Thank you so much. I know some of you have dropped, so I know we went a little bit over time, but hopefully that was a useful day for all of you guys. So I will see you tomorrow. So we're going to have 2 wonderful presentations again tomorrow, some more workshops. So thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. See you. Bye.